So this afternoon, the final agenda item is just obviously, as I say, kind of building on some of the work that Brian has done, is to have that conversation around kind of computer-aided design and drawing packages, and a bit like that question that Brian asked around, you know, should we be doing this? And for me, that computer-aided design isn't just about, you know, doing the drawing, communicating that information to surveyors, but it's also about actually how we use these tools as occupational therapy. So what we're going to look at today is actually how we can use computer-aided design tools such as Modi. Obviously, there are other tools out there on the market, but for us at Foundations, we have got Modi, and how we can use that as a tool for our clinical reasoning as occupational therapists. And there's not only myself here this afternoon to talk you through this, but I've also got Paul Smith, because I can't do two things at once. So I'll do the talking bit, and then Paul's just going to take you through actually how you put into practice some of the things that I'm going to be talking about. Those of you that know me know that I have got a real strong interest in terms of the built environment. I did so that what you can see here is lots of my books that I've got around occupational therapy, design, construction, and what you've got there, I've got an arrow pointing to, is my PhD. And basically my PhD was bringing the world of occupational therapy and merging it with design and construction techniques. And again, for me, this is about using computer-aided design and how we use it as a clinical tool for the work that we do. So yeah, so that's just my all my books at home that I've got around that bring together kind of universal design, inclusive design, but also the world of occupational therapy as well. Because obviously what we do as occupational therapists in housing, what we're doing is we're using design and construction techniques to actually improve people's health and well-being by providing and designing environments that people are that are not only just accessible. Just because you create something accessible doesn't necessarily make it usable. And I think that is the bit that we bring together, of what we bring to this space. But it's then about actually how we use computer-aided design to actually communicate that as well. So what I want to just talk about is thinking about how we use computer-aided design tools such as Modi to not just think about it's a drawing package, but actually seeing them as those clinical and professional reasoning tools that support what we do in our interventions as occupational therapists. So how we use design to improve people's health and well-being, and how we use these tools to actually support us to do that. What computer-aided design can do for us as occupational therapists, it can help us capture lots of the information that we capture when we're carrying out our initial assessments, when we're having a look at people's environments, or when we're looking at an existing environment. So it helps us capture, or it can help us capture, all that important information that we're gathering in one space. It then, as Brian has demonstrated this afternoon, computer-aided design can help us analyse whether a particular design is going to work for that individual, given the kind of functional issues that somebody's got. So it helps us analyse whether we've got that right person environment fit. It can help us communicate what we're trying to do. So that is not only communicating to the person how their adaptation is going to look in terms of layout. So that's when we're working with the disabled person and their family, but also communicating that information to our surveyor colleagues, architect colleagues, and also just kind of, again, just as a tool to be able to verify with the person, the family, the architect, that we have got it right and it is going to be, it will work. I think what drawings can help us do is obviously we've got all this kind of professional reasoning and clinical reasoning that goes on, but what it can help us do when we're using these tools is make visible our professional and clinical reasoning. One of the things I will just say is, for me, and people might disagree, but what we're dealing with are those conceptual drawings. What we're not talking about are those very technical specification types of drawings that our architects are using in terms of actually when they're getting on site and actually building it. But it's about, using them as conceptual drawings to help communicate those ideas. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to talk about photographs. So lots of the computer-aided design software, certainly Modi does this. What you can do is you can use and upload photographs of that environment that you're carrying out that assessment. Often people just use it just to stick the grab rail on, and Paul will show that in a minute, but it's also about using annotation actually on the photograph, and this is something that you can do really easily with Modi, so that you can actually annotate what kind of barriers and functional problems, so not only what the barriers you're seeing, but also annotate some of the kind of functional problems that you're also seeing the individual having, and actually just capturing that on the image. So that what that enables you to do is that annotated photograph then becomes that clinical record, assessment record of what you've identified, and it captures it really well. I think what is also useful in terms of when you're annotating, say the photograph, is you can actually capture everything, share that with the person and the family, just to make sure that you have captured all the issues. I think when you do a home visit, I think often you are talking about, you're talking around a lot of issues, and you may think you've captured everything, but sometimes you do forget bits and pieces. So I think if the person gets the photograph with the annotation, if you have missed anything, because it is more visual than just a written record of, right, this is what we're going to do, it just helps that person verify that you have kind of captured all the issues that you've identified. So as I say, Modi, and I know a number of tools do also have that ability to upload photographs, but it's about not just saying this is where I want the rail. It's about using it to capture that assessment information, annotating it and popping it on there. So you've got that clinical record of kind of your assessment and what you've identified as being the issue. Obviously, what a photograph can't tell you, a bit like when you actually do the drawing, which I'll come on to after Paul's gone through the photograph bits, is obviously there are environmental factors that you can't necessarily see. So it's also about including information that is more than just the layout. So it's about including annotations on that photograph that might be around the lighting, the heating, the ventilation, the acoustics, that you can't necessarily capture on that image, and just making sure that you're capturing everything that you might have picked up on your assessment. And just that final point now, which is what a type note loses. So obviously, when obviously often we are writing these things in our clinical notes, but if it is on the photograph, it just retains all that rich data that you don't necessarily get in your clinical notes. So what I'll do, I'm sorry this is going to be kind of to and fro a little bit, but I'm going to hand over to Paul, who's just going to, I'll stop sharing, who's just going to take us through what that actually looks like in Modi. So I'll just stop sharing. Hopefully Paul's with us.
I am. Has that appeared yet?
Yes, it has, yeah.
Okay, excellent afternoon, everybody. So guide me what you want me to do there, Rachel. What do you want me to oh, you're on mute now.
Yeah, sorry, if you can upload a photograph. I don't know if you've got a photograph of a bathroom or something.
I have. So I've got a photograph of a bathroom that I prepared. earlier. There it is in Modi.
So the kind of things that I would want to annotate on there are kind of the kind of hazards that I'm seeing. So obviously things like the mat on the floor. I may want to say something about the glare from. Yeah.
So I can put a little arrow on there and then add a text box saying box. Tricky when you're sharing, you know, everything laps over each other. There we go. And you could say, just move you out of the way of where I'm typing. This is mass. You can change the colour of that as well if it helps it a little bit better, and then move the arrow so that point to it and get rid of the text, and we can make that white as well so it stands out and make it a bit thick. There we go.
Yeah. The other things that I might want to put, I'm just mindful of time, but hopefully it makes that point where you could, like with the bath, you could say, you know, person, you know, lacks range of movement, struggling with range of movement to get over the bath side, struggling with, so obviously you've got the crystal taps there, you know, arthritis is making it difficult to turn the taps. So hopefully you can get that point around how you can start capturing lots of that information. And I think it just, for me, it really just brings it alive in terms of the kind of problems that somebody's having, and you've got that much more visual cue to be able to capture those bits and pieces. So hopefully that gives you a flavour around using it to capture those bits in terms of when you're doing that assessment and identifying the barriers that you've got. But also, obviously, what it doesn't tell you, the photograph, is those bits around things that you might need to be mindful of around, particularly in the bathroom, around heating, ventilation, that you can kind of include on there. And that is obviously information that you can obviously share with the client, the family, as well as the surveyor, so that they understand what the issues are. So you can see how, like I say, I think lots of us use tools like this for marking up, but it's about thinking, actually, how can I use it more richly to support when we're looking at barriers? And I'm sure many of you are already doing this, but it's just that reminder about how we can use it to support our professional and clinical reasoning. I think the other thing as well, what's really good about a photograph is often when you're doing a home visit, particularly if it's a visit where there's lots going on, I think what's really good about a photograph is that it takes that snapshot and it doesn't miss anything. And I think, you know, many times I've gone back and I've looked at a photograph and thought, oh God, I can't remember. Oh, I didn't remember seeing that. So it can be really useful. So that is how we can use it in terms of that. Obviously, in terms of using this type of software, it is really useful in terms of when you're wanting to mark up for placing grab rails and those bits and pieces. So I don't know if you want to demonstrate that element, Paul.
Yeah, I've just popped a grab rail on the wall and put a dimension next to it. So yeah, it's as simple as clicking on the grab rail and then putting it wherever you want it.
Yeah.
You can change the colour, put the dimensions on, and then if you want to add any like dimensions from the floor, for example, you can add a quick and easy dimension there.
Right. So if I just I'll just start sharing my screen again. So just in terms of, and Paul will demonstrate this again, it's obviously that opportunity with the software to obviously draw the existing layout, and then again helping you to decide, you know, in terms of the existing space, what matters. Again, similar to what we've done with the photograph, being able to annotate any kind of functional problems, you can get those on there. In terms of doing that analysis as well, looking at the floor plan, just working out whether you've got the right space, etc., within the existing layout. And again, that opportunity to share that drawing with that individual, just to make sure that you've identified the problems and you've highlighted all the barriers that you think you've picked up. So it's that opportunity to share that. The key thing for me is that bit around when you're coming up with a proposal around being able to analyse whether you have got that right person environment fit. So making sure and annotating what you need and why you need it. I think sometimes surveyors think we're being pernickety, but we all know that if you know you're working with somebody with MS, MND, you know if you don't quite get that grab rail in the right place, and how critical it is getting it in the right place. So being able to obviously annotate that onto the drawing, not only where you need it, but why you need it. So, you know, communicating those design requirements to the person as well. Again, it's not a drawing that is around specifications, but what you're trying to record is what your clinical intent is with a particular drawing. So you've got that information down there. I think one of the I know there is some debates around turning circles and whether that's the right thing to use, but it's around, and obviously Brian has shown his tool this afternoon, but it's also about using either turning circles, turning ovals, or activity spaces at least to hopefully, or to use those on the proposed design. So at least you've got some way of testing out whether what you're going to use for the individual is actually going to work or not. So that bit for me, which is our expertise, is making sure we've got that person environment fit before the work actually is carried out. And again, it's that opportunity to make visible what our professional and our clinical reasoning is, being able to review that with the individual and the surveyor as well. One of the things we've got with Modi and, as I say, other CAD packages is using and turning a 2D image into a 3D design. So again, I'm not particularly brilliant with 2D drawings, so sometimes having that 3D translation just helps you be able to visualize a little bit better whether you have got the right design or not, or whether you've got the right person environment fit. Again, when we did the DFG review back in 2018, it is that bit around often people, older and disabled people, find that 3D image easy to understand. And again, I know it always sounds dramatic, but I always say doing an adaptation is one of the most intrusive things that you can do as an OT. So at least if you've got that ability to communicate visually what you're intending to do, then hopefully you're more likely to get, or the person is going to be able to give true informed consent. You're not just going in there and doing anything. And again, just a really useful way of discussing that with family members and contractors. Obviously, with 3D, it enables you to check those bits that you can't see in a 2D plane. So being able to see some of the reach bits and pieces in terms of what you're designing, and making sure that, you know, are the switches at the right height, etc., etc. And often it's those little details that make a really big difference in terms of getting things right. So some of the barriers that you can't see in a 2D plan, you can reveal in a 3D CAD drawing. And again, it's just that ability to be able to provide our clinical and professional reasoning to our surveyor and architect colleagues. So I'm going to let Paul show this, but for me, Modi and other CAD software, what it does, it enables that full arc of our clinical and professional reasoning, from being able to capture our assessment information, communicating information to both the individual that needs the adaptation and our surveyor colleagues, and making sure that we have got the right design, and then making sure that everybody, and verifying that the design is going to work for that person. So what I'll do for the last 5 minutes, I'll just get Paul to kind of run through some of those features that I've talked about, and so that you can think about actually how you should be using these tools in practice. So I'll stop sharing.
There we go. So this is the other version of Modi, where you can start to build a 2D plan, and then it automatically converts into 3D. So you can see over on the left-hand side here, there are a range of different tools. So I'm going to be doing a bathroom today. So there's stuff for a kitchen, rails and things, and ramps and stairs at the bottom as well. But for today, I'll just focus on a kitchen. So this graph paper is basically your floor where you're drawing your plan, and each one of these larger squares is a meter by a meter. So it's all kind of drag and drop. So there's my walls. So it comes in as a kind of 4 meter by 4 meter, which is obviously quite big for a bathroom. So let's make it 2 meters tall and wide, and that's 2.5 meters, 2.5 meters long. So once you've got the walls in, I can add a door, and again it's dragging it and dropping it, popping it on the wall. Just move you out the way, Rachel. You can then adjust the dimensions. So typical door is 825 millimeters wide, 2,100 high, and then happy with that. Sat in the wall. And I'll do the bathroom as existing to start with. So pop in a toilet. I will twizzle that round, and pop that back against the wall there. I'll add in a basin, drag it across, twizzle it round, all the way around, and again pop that back against the wall. You see over on the side here, I can make it a little bit wider if it's a slightly wider basin as well. And then let's add in a bath. So there we go. Bring it in, twizzle it around, and pop it back. And that's a little bit big for a bath. So I can either do it, adjust the figures, or I can kind of drag and drop. So usually more 1700 by 800 or 700 is a more typical size for a bath. So then if I kind of see that was kind of fairly easy and straightforward to do the plan. You can have these dimensions on and off depending on whether you want to show them or not, but very similar to Visio in terms of the way you drag things across and pop them onto the grid paper to do the 2D plan. But then kind of the magic with Modi is you can click on Edit in 3D, and you've got an automatic 3D representation of the space. So just go back into 2D. I'll move the room.
You can lock that, can't you, Paul?
Yes, you can lock it.
Yeah.
But in fact, let me lock it now so that it doesn't move about. If I, it's again having to work around where we're on the screen, Rachel. It's making it slightly more complicated. So that's the existing layout. You can also add a turning circle. So I'll add Add my turning circle, and then what do you want it? 1500?
Yeah.
You can see it's just about space for your turning circle in that particular bathroom. I think it's probably a little bit bigger than most bathrooms, but you can change make that dash, put it in a colour if you want to. A bit thicker, whatever you wanted to do with it. So that's the existing plan. Did you want me to do anything else with that, Rachel? Is that?
I think for me, it's just about, obviously it does do that, but it's about how you then use it with your clinical reasoning, your professional reasoning around, you know, are we going to have enough space? What about the carer? Those bits and pieces. So it's just, for me, it's about how we use these tools. So it's not just simply about drawing it. It's about using it to be able to analyse whether we're going to achieve what you want to achieve.
Yeah.
Certainly beats, many of us have been around for years, it beats the days when we used to cut out the templates and stick it on the end of your pencil and run it round to see whether it's going to work or not. So at least it's certainly more sophisticated. And again, it's about thinking about how we use annotation to capture some, the information that you might want to capture as you're designing something, and the rationale for what you're doing.
So this is a level access shower area rather than your bath. I took the bath out. I could put a glass panel in, twizzle that around. Looks like shower. Okay. Oh, sorry, I've done the wrong thing. There we go. There we go. That's the screen in place. I can pop in a shower. So, pop that back against the wall. What else shall I put in? I can add a extractor fan to the ceiling. There it is. And I could add some rails. I might have an inverted T-rail. Pop in there. I rotate that 90. Back against the wall. And I could, what else can I put in? I could put a drop down rail next to the toilet, maybe. So pop that in, twizzle it around so it's the right way. Back against the wall, and you see its height's there at 1,000, so put it down at 600, so it's more sensible height. Then we can look at it in 3D. Got your 3D represent. You can even look up the fan on ceiling. If there's any other dimensions, you can add those. If there's any notes you want to add, you can add text and other bits and pieces as we did before. If you want to measure anything else, yeah, either vertically or horizontally, you can put those details on. So you see very quickly and simply, you can do a 3D or do a 2D sketch that automatically converts into a 3D that you can choose how you want to view it, and download an image or export an image of that. Zoom in and out. Great. Yeah, whatever you want. And of course, you can obviously download the 2D version as well if you want that for your notes and to either discuss with the client or with the technical officer or architect.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Paul. That's great. Thank you. I'm going to say not just director foundations, but you can actually do something useful as well. Not that you're not useful. Sorry, I'm talking.
I was
That's
finding
lovely.
out some plans yesterday that were 25 years older or older than the person I was giving the plans to. But
There we go. There we go. Right, that's lovely. So yeah, hopefully just been a you. Yeah, I've probably taught you all to suck eggs this afternoon, just going over that. But I think it is just that reminder that yeah, I think sometimes just surveyors, close your ears, Paul, but I think sometimes it's surveyors understanding why we do need to get involved with plans. Often I hear surveyors say, no, that you're an OT, you don't need to worry about the plans. But actually, yeah, we do, because it's the tool that we are able to use to be able to analyze whether the design that we're requesting is going to work for that individual. So yes, we do need to get involved. So and I'll send out the PowerPoint this afternoon that we've used, and I'll include the details around MOD if people want that.